Hello everyone and welcome to this month's edition of BluebeamMeUp. BluebeamMeUp is a series of webinars run by Brighter Graphics to get the most out of your usage of Bluebeam Revu. This month we'll be diving into one of the most common uses of Bluebeam Revu, which is estimating. Estimating is one of the core functions of Bluebeam, and it allows you to take measurements and to take on a more visual representation. In the webinar, we're going to be taking a quick look at how measurement tools work, what information is generated, and show you some unique examples from customers around the world. Once again, the webinar will be hosted by myself and my colleague Troy DeGroot. Troy is one of the leading Bluebeam instructors in the world, and he's going to be sharing some of his expertise and knowledge that he's gathered over the years working on live projects using Bluebeam Revu. It's great to see so many new people here, and welcome back to the people that have attended previous webinars. And at this point, I'm going to hand you over to my colleague Troy.
Good afternoon, Bluebeamers. My name is Troy DeGroot with Chapter 2, and I'm excited to partner with the team at BricsTech and Brighter Graphics to deliver world-class Bluebeam training and customization services, empowering you to get the most out of your Bluebeam investment. Here we are finishing out the first month of the new year with one of my favorite Bluebeam topics, material takeoffs and estimates. This month I'm going to show you how the basic measurement tools work in Bluebeam Revu to get us started. Then we'll have some fun with a few examples of customized tools that can be built to get the exact material quantities you're looking for. So let's dive into Bluebeam here. I've got, to start out, I always like to do my presentations with the Revu Advanced profile, and that will lay out several tools along the left side. We've talked about in the past when we introduce the different panels. We've got more on the right side, and so we're going to go through the first thing we want to do. The most important thing that we need to do before we take any measurements is calibrate the drawing. So there's a couple different ways. I'm going to go over to the ruler over here. That's our measurement panel. A couple other places you might find your measurements are potentially up here across the top in your toolbars. You'll also find them under the Tools menu. Under Measurements, you have all your measurement tools here. I like to use mine over here on the right side. I leave this panel open and so that I can see all my measurement tools across the top. And so what you'll see here, the most important button on here is Calibrate. Before I show you how to do that, there is a preset. So if the title block or the drawing title tells you what size the drawing is at, you could come into the preset, use this drop-down menu, and select the scale of your drawing, and that will calibrate it. So all your measurements will respect that scale. I tell all of my students every time to never do it that way. I don't trust the title blocks that they were printed correctly. I don't trust that they're not a scan of a scan and off in all directions. So I like to increase my chances of getting it accurate by using the Calibrate button. And how that works, I'm going to click on that. It's going to tell me to select 2 points of a known dimension. So I'm going to click OK here. And I'm going to zoom in somewhere where I know a dimension. In this case, I've got 30 feet from grid 6 to grid 7. And I'm going to go ahead and click on that grid line. I like to hold my Shift key so it draws a straight line over to the next grid line. Click there. And then this window pops up. And it's basically saying this random distance on the piece of paper equals 1 foot. And we know that's not true. We know it's 30 feet. So I'm going to update that. If you want to switch the units, you can do that in here as well. How you want those to report. And then I'm going to say apply scale. And now my drawing, any dimensions that I do on there are going to be accurate to the scale that I just gave it. Regardless of how it's printed on the sheet, it's going to be accurate to what we just calibrated. So now we can go through and start showing you how these measurement tools work. The first one is our length measurement. Now, anytime I do measurements, even anytime I calibrate, I always come down here and make sure that my snap to content is turned on. What that does is, see that little box? It's snapping to the nearest point of that line in the content of the PDF. And when it finds the end of it, it will snap and lock in on that. So I can pick, and I don't have to zoom in and try to find the center of those walls and all those pixels. I can snap directly to that content and pick, and it'll give me that dimension. So there's our back check. We know that that's accurate now. Now we can come in and get measurements of things that weren't measured for us. We can do these window mullions. Start to measure those out. Those are going to be 5 feet on center. Another thing I like to do is, you can see the wall thickness here. A lot of times I like to turn off my line weights. So over here, you'll see my line weight tool. I'm going to click on that, and you'll see now all of my walls have thinner lines. Makes it a lot easier to see what I'm measuring. Turn it back on, you can see them thick and see them thin again. So I like to turn those off. Now I can see where I'm clicking on that wall. Hold my shift key, click on the opposite wall. It'll give us that room dimension. So that is our length measurement. The next one is the poly length tool. This one is going to give us a linear dimension along a line, and so we just need to draw a path in here. Come down the hallway, come out here, and maybe we'll stop here. I'm going to double click, and here you can see it gives me the length of each line segment, and at the end it's going to report the total length of that line. So whether that's egress, and that's the distance that we would have to go to exit the building, or maybe you're using it for different materials. Great tool for just getting the linear footage of any path that you can trace. So that's the poly length tool. Next one we'll show you is the area measurement. I'll zoom in on a couple of rooms here. Area measurement is here. There's a couple different ways to do this one. First way, this is just a square room. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and snap into the corner here and drag, click and drag down to the opposite corner and let go. And we can draw a rectangle. It's going to give us the square footage of that room. So most of the time, this is going to land on top of some other text. Most softwares try to get it to land in the middle of the room. And when you try to move that, it's going to move the whole markup. The way we avoid that is hold our shift key. So select the markup, hold your shift key, and then you can click and drag that text wherever you want it to be. Okay. You can come over here, change this area. If you want to see that in square meters, you can switch that as well for the output. I like to set mine up with the pink inside of it so that when I'm looking at the overall plan, I know which rooms I've done my estimate on and which ones are left. In our estimating courses, we show you how to do that, how to set those up as your defaults, things like that. So that is our area. Another way that we can do that, the first one was click and drag. The second one, let's try this room that's a little bit different shape. Clicking and dragging a rectangle wouldn't work. So I'm going to, again, snap into the corner and just pick on each of these straight lines. And then over here, my last point, I'm going to double click, and that fills in that room. Now the trick here for this curve, I could have picked along here and put a bunch of straight segments. What I'm going to do is select that markup, right click on this line segment. It's on a different screen. Let me do this, right click, and I'm going to convert to arc. And if I did a good job picking the end of those straight lines, it'll do a good job filling out that arc for me. And then it updates the square footage according to what it's seeing there. So those are two ways that we can do the area measurement. Next, we'll jump over and take a look at the volume tool. Since all of our material takeoffs are going to be either a length, linear footage, area, volume, or count, those are the tools that we're going to go through today. The volume tool, let's say we have a isolated footing here underneath this column. If I click and hold my shift key down, it'll actually draw a square, so it'll be equal on each side. I let go. Right now it's saying 0 cubic feet. That's because we haven't given that footing a depth yet. It's just an area. If I select the markup, come over here to my measurement panel and put a depth in there. Maybe we want this 16 inches deep. I hit enter, and now it's going to give me 59 cubic feet. Now, depending on how material is bought, when we order it, we can change that type of thing. So if we want to switch this over to cubic meters, cubic yards, we just set our volume to report cubic meters, and then it'll tell us how much we need for that one. Next one is our count tool. When I select this one, it's going to give me a default red check mark. And this allows me to go in here and just place a check mark on all the meeting rooms. What I haven't shown you yet is down in the markups list, it's recording all these quantities for us. So down here we've got our isolated footing with 2 cubic meters. If I click on this markup here, that's our meeting rooms. So it's telling me there's 6 of those, and so on. We've got our little path that we traced in here, different length measurements, different area measurements, and so on. All of that data is being collected down here in our markups list automatically. So that is our count measurement. And the last one I'm going to show you here for just the basics is dynamic fill. That's the one on the far right over here. Looks like a bucket of water. When I click on that, it's going to open up this new toolbar. And how this one works, I'm going to zoom in here on one of these more odd-shaped rooms. How dynamic fill works is I need a continuous line all the way around the perimeter of the area I want to measure. And because I have an open door here, I need to close that. So I'm going to come up here, click on Add a Boundary, and I'm just going to draw. I'm going to click to start, double click to end, draw a line across that door and close it. Next, I'm going to select my paint bucket. I come out into the middle of the room here, and I'm just going to hold my left mouse button down, swirl a little bit, let the paint fill the room. You can see that the continuous line of the door swing stopped the paint, so I'm going to bleed through that one. Again with the door tag, bleed through that. Once this space is all filled in, I need to tell it what to report. So I want to make sure I'm selecting area. Make sure that's highlighted blue. If I don't have something highlighted, it's just, and I click apply, it's just going to cancel. It's not going to report anything because I didn't tell it what to report. So I'm going to select area and click apply. And you can see there it did a really nice job of going around all those curves and gave us the square footage of that area. So that is dynamic fill. I'll show you that one again. There's a few steps, so let's do it again. Again, I've got an open door over here. So I'm going to come over here and add a boundary. Draw a line across here. Go to my paint bucket. Just hold my left mouse button down and swirl a little bit. You never want to get too close to these corners and things like that or it'll bleed through. You got to start over. I'm going to bleed through that countertop and my door tag again. I'm going to come up here and click apply. And there you can see my area measurement again. So you can see how quickly we can go in here and do takeoffs for flooring or ceiling tiles or whatever the case might be. We can get all that information really quickly just by coloring in these areas. And that's it for the basics of how those measurement tools work. I'm going to go ahead and close this one. And then let's jump out to some other examples here. I'm going to go ahead. I've got a couple different sessions of Bluebeam open here. So I'm going to go on to the next one here. And this one is erosion control example. So in these drawings here, we actually have 3 phases of the project. I've got my custom tools over here for silt fence, yellow and black barricade tape, inlets, sack inlets, construction entrance, all sorts of different materials for our erosion control, tree protection, and so on. And as you can see, I built those tools so that there's certain line types. This one with the S is that's called a super silt fence in this case. And down here we've got ECB matting going around the corner, or around those curves to keep those slopes from washing away. Got silt fence in here. So basically, I just built a bunch of custom tools, and then you go through the drawings and trace the symbols that are there. So if I turn off some of those, you can see that that same silt fence or super silt fence line is here. And with my tool, I just went through and traced it. Here I've got some skimmer rock. I've got a 19 gauge hardware cloth around this inlet, so on and so forth. So we're just going through and tracing all these elements within the project. And then on the next sheet, this is the second phase. They added some more inlets in here, inlet protection, some more matting, some more rock in here, so on and so forth. And then in the third page, you can see here they added more rock as they're developing this site. Over here we've got the construction entrance over here, and another one over here. And if we look at the markups list on this one, you can see that we've got total quantities for all of those different materials. If I come to my markups list here and turn on my spaces, I used spaces to build out those phases. So you can see this little shaded area on each page. I created that using spaces and called it phase 3. So now over here, if I sort this by phase, by clicking on the top of the column, you can see all the materials in phase 3, all the materials in phase 2 and 1, and so on. I also built a legend to read all of the tools, all the markups that were on this sheet. So this is a live calculation of everything that's on this sheet. Erosion control phase 3. It's giving me the quantities for that page. If I go back, each page has the quantities for that page, for that phase. You can see what the symbol looks like, the description for the tool, and the measurement and the unit in here. So, great tools. They look the same as the ones in the legend coming from CAD. We added color so you can see it. And you can just go through and trace those drawings and get your quantities. If there's a revision, it's very easy to come in here and just adjust what this looks like. If that silt fence moves over here, you adjust it and all of your quantities update. You can cloud that and very easily justify why your price changed. Okay, next example, let's come down here and let's take a look at some concrete tools in here. These are some tools that I built for another concrete contractor. You can see I've got all my isolated footings under the columns. I've got some piers in here as well, strip footings, walls, all sorts of different concrete shapes. And what I want to show you here is these were all their common slabs that they're pouring. 4-inch, maybe with welded wire fabric. Just randomly place these here. I built those tools so they have a little hatch pattern in there indicating the welded wire fabric. If we come down here, we've got a 5-inch slab with number 5, or with reinforcing at 12 inches on center. Trace that out. Again, I put a hatch pattern on that. And the depth of that is 5 inches. I built that into the tool. Let's try a 6-inch with 18-inch spacing on the rebar. I widened out the hatch pattern a little bit more. And then we'll do an 8-inch slab also at 24 inches on center. So you can see all those different tools. So these tools not only will give us the volume of concrete, but what I've done is build out custom columns down here to get my rebar. So let's filter this list to show only my slabs. Stretch this up a little bit. The welded wire fabric. We might not have any rebar in there, so we can switch this to 0. We're just entering in the size of the rebar. So this is a number 4, so on and so forth. I built a column in here, so if maybe in this 8-inch slab we have bars on the top and bottom, I can come in here and put in 2 mats. I built in the spacing. The tool was built for 24 inches on center, so here I've got the 2 feet in there in each direction. And it's doing the math for me and telling me we need 1,254 linear feet of that number 4 bar. So that's giving me the grid total in each direction, top and bottom. This one here was the one where it was 18 inches on center. So we got that in here, gives us our quantities, and so on and so forth. We can set these up to get a lot more precise data out of the same markup. So I don't have to go in here and draw in lines for all my rebar either. It's all a formula of the shape of the concrete. So lots of cool stuff that you can do in there. Let's jump into our next example. This one I did for land development. So as an example, these are a couple of different developments. close by my house. And so again, I used spaces to create this yellow space representing the whole development. And then I built, I don't have the tool set turned on, but I have tool sets for the types of development. So business use, medium residential, retail, restaurant, business, retail, green space. So if we need a certain amount of a certain percentage of our space to remain green, we lay out that space as well. So you can see I just came in and I took an aerial photo from Google Earth and I traced out the whole area, traced out the existing building, laid out some proposed buildings. And then what I did was I had all of that using quantity link. It's feeding into an Excel file all of those quantities for me. And that's how once that data pulled into an Excel file, I asked it to give me a graph. And then I just did a screenshot, put that on my presentation. So now I can present this to the public or to the city, and it has all of my different percentages of the types of construction within that site. Over here, I've got the same thing. And up here in this development, I've got it all laid out as well. So lots of green space in that one along the river. So that's that example. Let's go over, and the next one I have here is a security plan. So you can see throughout this plan, I've got different card reader symbols, speakers, card readers over here. And then again, a legend indicating each one of those. So you might have detailed metadata in each one of these different card readers. You know, maybe you've got the passwords or the serial numbers or anything like that that identify these separate from the rest, how it's mounted, things like that. You can build all that into those tools. Over here, you can see I've got tool sets for access control, communications, switches, doors, power supplies, and so on and so forth. Video surveillance. Place those, place a legend, and you've got all your quantities. What we did with this one, with this particular customer, is we built these tools out so that they could go on site and walk through an existing building with maybe a new owner, place all the card readers and cameras and things where they thought they needed them. And the prices were all built into these tools so that when leaving that meeting, they already had an estimate. Then they would turn that over to the engineers. They would move things where they need to be, put in more if they needed more for coverage with cameras and things like that. And again, because the price is in there, it would update that bid. They also took it to the next level where now that it's engineered, they gave that marked up PDF to the installers, who then came in, and as they finished each one, they changed the status. So they marked it completed, and it put down the date and time that they marked it complete. So they just worked on this list until everything was marked complete. When it was finished, they could go through, inspect everything, change the status again to approved, or whatever they want that to say. You can build custom ones in here as well. And then they also handed this over to the owner for facility management. So if a camera keeps breaking, they can call up and say, hey, it's this one. And you know right away, because of the tools, which one it is to order and replace it. So finding ways to utilize your markups from the front end at the sales all the way through installation into facility management is something that I like to look at. Avoid marking things up 2-3 times between different teams. That's our security example. A couple more left here. This next one is tile flooring and wall tile. And here you can see I've got some different things marked up, different floor tile 1, floor tile 2, 3, and 4. Those are different types. So this one's maybe a 12 by 12, certain style. This is a different style, so I marked those with just a generic floor tile 1 and 2. And every project, floor tile 1 will be a different tile. So rather than building out the entire catalog from every manufacturer, we just build out, as you can see here, floor tile. I also have waterproofing in here. I just built 10 or so different floor tiles. Worst case, that's what we thought we needed on any given project. You can see here I have transition strips as well. So we just traced over where we're transitioning from maybe tile to carpet or something like that. Outside corners, inside corners, got those tools down here for our walls in the bathroom. So we've got an inside corner, outside corner. We mark those and get a count for those. Any bull nose, we've got tools for that as well. Wall tile with base, so we can come in and grab our wall tile and just trace where that's going to go. And we can leave all those lengths on. I would probably turn those off. So if I come over here, turn off all of my, probably just turn them all off and leave the label on there so it says wall tile 1. Come over here, this one. There we go, wall tile 1. And I'm highlighting it just like I would with a highlighter on a piece of paper. Once I count it, it's highlighted. In our case, I highlight it and it's counted. And I can go through and see the differences in all the different wall tile because I've got different colors set up. And then down here again, I've got all my quantities adding up. So all of my floor tile 1, I've got 2 instances here, and you can see 202 square feet. Floor tile 2, 232 square feet, so on and so forth. The transition strip, I've got 140 feet of that, linear feet. There's a transition strip 2, so that's a different type, 67 feet of that. And then the last one we'll show you is our storefront glass or curtain wall glass. On this project, we're looking at an elevation view of the building. In this case, you can see my custom tools over here. I've got storefront. This particular customer wanted an area measurement to measure the total square footage for install purposes. So they're pricing the install according to the square footage of the whole thing. So we've got storefront, curtain wall, and just regular windows have different prices. And here you can see storefront install. I traced that whole orange area. And then we've got joints. So I set these up rather than clicking on each side of each of these horizontals. I built a tool so that I could place one in the middle, and it represents both. So it's 2 per markup. So you save a little clicking there. I've got different ones for storefront and different ones for curtain walls. So I just built these to say storefront joint. Then we look at the different types of glass. I've got storefront glass and curtain wall glass. Again, just gave it generic names because the glass is going to be different every project. If you look over here, we've got some tempered glass across the bottom so that doesn't break, and then regular glass across the top. And it's going to give us all of our quantities down here. Different types of glass. I can click on the subject and it will tell me curtain wall G1, glass type 1. There's 4 pieces of that, and it gives me my total square footage of that as well. And then we also built in here some fun formulas for fabrication time and the installs. And then we actually went in and figured out, including waste, how many tubes of caulking we would need according to the glass. Because all of these area measurements, it's also giving you the perimeter. And we multiplied the perimeter of each one of these times 2. So there's caulking on the inside and the outside. So it's figuring out not only the glass, the fabrication time, the installation time, the caulking quantity, the joints, all of that stuff is being calculated with just a few markups here. And then we built a number thus. So if there's 5 of these same storefronts on different walls throughout the building, we can just say 5 thus, and it'll multiply everything times 5 for our quantities. One thing I also like to show with this one is an idea that I had a while back for a different way to use spaces. And normally it's used for punch walks and things like that to locate where markups are. So you can see what markups are in each room, what work needs to be done with those punch items or those snagging lists. What I did was I'm tricking it to use my spaces tool, and I just trace, or I draw a space around that whole storefront, and I'm going to give it a mark number. So I'm going to call this storefront 10 and hit OK. And if I look at my markups list down here, now you can see for my storefront 10, the mark number I gave it, I have 15 elements, 15 different parts that are in that assembly. I gave that assembly a mark number, and these are all my individual pieces. So I used the spaces tool to create assemblies in my estimate. So that's what I've got for you today. I hope you learned a thing or two. You can apply it to your work immediately. If you have any questions regarding training or customization services for your company, don't hesitate to reach out to the team at Brighter Graphics or myself. We'd be happy to help you with those. Once again, thanks for hanging out this afternoon. I'll turn it back over to Darren and Sean to wrap things up.
Hey guys, thanks for that, Troy. Appreciate you handed it over. As always, that's another amazing demonstration. It always surprises me how much depth and content Troy does go into. As you can imagine, we have a limited time, so we do move relatively fast. If you ever do want to go back and view the webinar at your own pace, it is on our website. I'll just put the address up now. And if you do want to enhance and improve on your Bluebeam usage, please visit our YouTube channel and subscribe to it. We are literally posting videos, tips and tricks and productivity tools every single day. There's hundreds of videos now on the YouTube channel. You can also scan the QR code if you would like to attend future webinars, and it will take you direct to the registration page. The next webinar is focusing on another core functionality of Bluebeam, which is the measurement tips and tricks. We have run this before, but for the people that
didn't attend the previous one, it's being run on the 28th of February at 2 p.m. It's a Tuesday yet again. Troy will go through all of his shortcuts and tips and tricks for measurements. Thank you everybody for joining, and hopefully speak to you guys soon.